at Davis Farm. We live now because in the year Art Baker told us we'd asked for it, to the tune of See the USA, my father bought his first car, a brand new 3-on-the-tree, white, 2-door Chevrolet that kept us home. 8 that summer, I should have filled my lungs with water at Davis Farm near Pine Brook, Pennsylvania, that August, if we, as in previous summers, had gone for 3 weeks. And there I would have had to climb the splintered ladder, ascend to the hayloft with all the others, parents with flickering lanterns, crying children being reassured their looming shadows were not ghosts, that they would be safe there, listening to the mice panic under the floor, the wind roar while night waters rose. We too would have sung 2 familiar hymns too loudly, Rock of Ages in the last hour of the little swimming creek. From the shattered barn, would never have seen that night the river, possessed and dispossessed, storm past its banks, exceed the bounds of all faith or reason, sudden undamned death in midnight shadow that poured into our summer valley, where new cornstalks until then stood tall each August. A boy soprano then, as were, or so it seemed to the child, Aunt Polly and the Saunders sisters and the little auburn-haired girl about my age, whose name I will not whisper now, nor ever again. I too probably would have hidden behind mother and my newborn sister, songless lips simulating, as my father with all the others turned away from the deputy's rowboat, because the lawman could not take us all, and no one would be so selfish, have so little faith in divine providence, as to actually flee with him in the tiny craft. Everyone expecting their own personal God somehow to provide safety for all in this storm, everyone watching the shaky flashlight recede as the lawman rode ruefully into the relentless downpour, never hazarding who sent him, nor expecting the dam break, that mountainous torrent rising in the dark behind them, gathering everything to it. We too should have been swept away that night, as was everyone we'd ever shared a black inner tube with on the docile creek, bobbing among shiny gray rocks. All those faithful, pious people who sought shelter that last summer night in an insufficiently buoyant Jesus somewhere outside Strasbourg, swept away by showers that fell without mercy upon the just and the unjust. I too should have sung at the top of my voice at the last, at the peak of the shrieking wind, the barn shuddering around us, and would not have been heard either, when the chill, crushing dark wet burst in, when the old beams, dry no more, cracked, the hay floor caved in, and we all dropped, broke like the splintering boards below us, fell like forsaken rag dolls, our own moist stuffings scattered, bleeding in the maelstrom upon the broken backs of frightened, whinnying horses, drowning. But we stayed home that year, made payments on the new Chevy instead. Baby Jean, too new. Stayed home in our little tract house, walked daily to the community swimming pool. Finally heard the outpouring of flood news on the radio. My mother making stunned, long-distance calls on our black rotary dial phone. Many unanswered answers in themselves. The following August, on the road again, we drove fast through New York State to a cottage on high ground where we kept mostly to ourselves, brooded over Lake George, the strange, pungent odors of the pencil factory just a few miles away at Ticonderoga, saw flags flying at the walled estate across the water. At the fort, we posed defiantly, sat fearlessly in corroded revolutionary cannon mouths, as if ready to hurl ourselves explosively across rivers. still Baptists then, but rarely venturing into water beyond our depth, spoke little those humming summer afternoons, tracked fireflies in flight each night, heard half-remembered train whistles, idly recalled Pennsylvania corn, so much higher 2 summers ago. The afternoon I finally laughed in the doorway of our second summer place, where in years to come, though through many tranquil hours I learned to play chess and read National Geographic. The afternoon I turned the garden hose on Father while he backed up to a screen door. Mother screamed, raged at the high water, inexplicably furious at all the encroaching, palpable wet, untransubstantiated liquidity. But I, her firstborn son, though she'd so earnestly wanted a daughter, sensed somehow we'd all been passed over, left behind, cheated of some unexplained great adventure. And so on the day we rowed out to picnic on a small island, the boy tried to shove the boat away, strandless there amid lake. Nearly succeeded, till Father, who somehow never learned to swim, waded out after the craft anyway. Gasped almost over his head, rowed us in swiftly, pale skinny arms bulging. On the roads home that summer, he drove too fast again, Mother beside him reprising her usual motion sickness, saying nothing about the British sailor from whom she'd become disengaged a decade earlier, rebounded to a man convinced he could never swim. We pulled into the sameness of our Levittown, the place where somehow we expected to be safe now, even though there were night-watered roses blooming in the dark, people who, on those evenings when all our windows stood wide open, shouted in their houses, shattered glass, and soon moved away. And we children all still climbed splintered ladders whenever we could, were told untrue things we needed to hear, that those who claimed to love us would never leave, the lake could never rise against us, storms were nothing to fear, and that all those shadows everywhere were not really shapes of things we'd all too soon become.